Well, good afternoon or good morning to everybody. This is Adam Rice, Regional Vice President with Infor Channels. And today I have the honor of introducing Evan Garber, CEO from EVS. And Evan has 15 years plus experience with process. And he'll be walking us through the Cloud Suite Industrial, formerly known as Sightline, solution that now offers process so we can address your business needs. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Evan, and then we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. We'll open the mic up, and thank you, everybody, for joining. Evan?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning to learn about the Cloud Suite process. As Adam said, my name is Evan Garber. I'm CEO of Escape Velocity Systems. I'm speaking to you today because for the last couple of years, EVS has been working with Infor on making their Sightline product more process-oriented. So what we're going to show you today are the title of this presentation is the 6 characteristics of process manufacturing ERP. So my goal is that you'll understand some of the things that Sightline process has that fit the specific needs of process manufacturers. And as Adam said, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation, so make lists of your questions. We'll be happy to answer all of them at the end of this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Where I usually like to start first is what is process manufacturing? So how do we define it? And it fits very neatly into two groups. One is food manufacturing. And we always like to, as Adam said, I've been in this industry for a very long time. So food manufacturing is kind of generic. There are a lot of differences between the different types of food manufacturing. So we really like to take a look at things that we call micro-verticals. A micro-vertical is a bakery versus prepared foods versus confectionery versus dairy. Each of these industries has very unique characteristics, very unique needs. So within the process system, we've actually tried to address each and every one of the specific micro-vertical needs versus just a generic formula-based manufacturing system. The second group that we deal with typically in process manufacturing is chemical. So chemical could be industrial and agricultural, it could be plastics and resins, paints, varnishes, soaps, drugs. Again, each one of these has some unique requirements, and we've worked very hard to meet the requirements of all of these specific micro-verticals. That's about as micro-vertical as I'm going to get today. But certainly just know that we've taken all the experience that we have in working in all these different micro-verticals, and we've put the various features and characteristics within the system so that the software is made for you and your industry. But the presentation today is the 6 characteristics. So there's 6 characteristics that really separate out the generic process manufacturing from discrete manufacturing systems. So let's take a look at them. Split bill of materials. I'm going to talk about split bill of materials in just a second, but it's so structural to making a process manufacturing or formula-based manufacturing system work that we're going to have dedicated an entire slide to talking about split bill of materials. Then formulations. Process manufacturers use percentage-based formulations versus bill of materials. We're going to take you back to some high school chemistry. We're going to talk about weight, volume, and density. These are things that typically discrete manufacturers don't deal with, but we as process manufacturers deal with on a regular basis. Having different weights and volumes in a formula, being able to convert those into a certain weight or volume for manufacturing. We're going to talk about production yield, co-products and byproducts, and quality assurance. So those of you who are in food manufacturing, food safety, quality assurance is one of the bigger deals of the day, certainly a thing you see in the news more often than any other topics. And also chemicals, obviously your hazmat and your SDS, a new global harmonization, is a big deal. So we as process manufacturers have a lot of regulatory issues that we have to deal with, and the Cloud Suite process is made to help you with those regulations. Okay, so let's start with the most basic, most fundamental concept in process manufacturing, which is called split bill of material. Okay, so split bill of material, here's the concept. Is that a finished good, so my Chips Ahoy package here is my finished good. This finished good is made up of two different parts. The first part is the technical term we use is called goop. So you use some goop, which is actually produced from your formula. Okay, so we use a certain amount of the formula, we bake it, we cook it, we can it, we do whatever we need to do, and then the second part of the split bill of material is how we package it. Okay, so packaging is actually like discrete manufacturing. So we take 25 cookies, we put them in a sleeve, we put a box around them, we slap a label on it to make one each. That's a discrete bill of material. So at its very foundation, process manufacturing is what we call hybrid manufacturing. You do both percentage-based formulation here when you make your goop, and you do discrete bill of materials to package it. Okay, so that's the idea of a split bill of material. Now, why in the world would we split a bill of material? The answer is really simple. Because this formula the formula is going to be the same in these two finished goods. These two finished goods have some very similar characteristics. They both use the formula, but they have very different characteristics in that they're packaged differently. Okay, so because we use a split bill of material, we say a finished good is defined as a formula and a packaging. We're able to say, well, I'm going to make this formula, and out of one run, one manufacturing work order, I can make multiple finished goods. I don't have to say I'm going to make one work order for the formula, create an inventory item, and then package it off. Now, some people do. Maybe some people manufacture the formula, they put it in the freezer or put it in a holding tank, and then they package it off as customers' orders happen. That's perfectly fine. We can do that as well in process manufacturing. But the complete flexibility we have is we could actually have multiple finished goods coming off of one line with one work order. Okay, so this is the idea of co-products, two sellable products that are going to be made out of one batch ticket. In some industries, fruits and vegetables, in meat manufacturing, different micro verticals, some of the products that come off are what we call byproducts. So if you have a piece of meat and you have to slice off some pieces that you don't want, those can actually be called byproducts. And byproducts typically have either zero or a very small amount of cost allocated to them, and they may be used as an ingredient in another manufacturing process, or they might be disposed of. So with the idea of split bill of materials, a formula can create multiple co-products and multiple byproducts out of one batch. So that's the idea of a split bill of material. Okay, if you understand split bill of material, you'll understand how process manufacturing is radically different than discrete manufacturing. Okay, so let's go on to the next piece here. So Cloud Suite process is not just a formula and batch manufacturing system. It's the entire suite of applications. It's warehouse management. If you're in food manufacturing, if you're doing lot tracking, barcoding is almost a no-brainer because you have so many more inventory transactions to take care of with lot tracking. Chemical manufacturers are seeing it more and more, the concept of having a real-time inventory. It also includes planning and scheduling. Some of the most powerful planning and scheduling tools I've seen in the mid-market we have in Cloud Suite process. Your forecasting, and then your basics, your accounting, distribution, HR, payroll. So the Cloud Suite process is a fully encompassing suite of products for process manufacturers. Okay, well, let's take a look at the real software. So PowerPoints are fine, but it's always fun to take a look at the real stuff. So what I have here, just to kind of help us navigate the solution, is really the four areas of our system. So first, the configuration. I'm going to show you some things with setting up formulas that are going to help illustrate how
is not available. To leave a message, wait for the tone. When finished recording,
can you mute that line? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Evan, go ahead.
We'll talk about, no trouble. So we'll talk about some of the configuration. We'll do a little bit in planning and scheduling. We'll talk about some operational tasks, some of the manufacturing execution tasks. And then again, one of the more important things we have in the system is our quality control. So, and we're going to see these all in the context of the 6 important things of a process manufacturing system. Okay, so let's take a look at formulas first. So I alluded to it earlier, and I'm not going to put this crowd on the spot, but the difference between a bill of material that you see in discrete manufacturing and a formula, I usually ask the trivia question, but I'm not going to put you on the spot. So the difference between the two is a formula is percent basis. Okay, a bill of material tells you how to make 1 unit. How do you make 1 desk? Well, you have 1 tabletop, 2 legs, 8 bolts, etc. How do you make chocolate chip cookie dough? Well, in this case, you have 40% flour, 26% sugar, 28% eggs, vanilla, etc. So this is our recipe card. Now, what's important about having a percentage-based formula is that you can scale it to any size. To keep my compare and contrast of a bill of material, you'd never make 1.5 desks. You'd never say, I want to make 1.5 desks, because it doesn't make any sense. Well, in a formula, you can make 28.5 pounds of the recipe if you want to, or 87.2 pounds. Doesn't matter. So because we're formula-based, we can scale it to any percentage we want, to any weight or volume we want. Okay, and we can recalculate by percentage. So let's say that we wanted to, as we're in the R&D mode, we want to change the percentages. We want to change this to 7% or this to 30%. The system can automatically recalculate our percentages for us. So the formula is in percentages, but we represent it also as pounds and gallons. Okay, and we can go back and forth depending on how you prefer to use your formulas. Okay, so percentage-based. Now, there's 2 types of percentage that people use. This is what's called a straight percentage. Flour is 40% of the entire formula. Okay, but bakers, I hope there's some bakers out there because they're some of my favorite industries to work in. Bakers have a thing called baker's percentage. So when I click this button, bakers want their recipes to be based off of baker's percentage, which is typically the percentage of the ingredients to flour. So you can see flour is my base now, and if I click off of this, we'll be able to calculate the percentage of all the ingredients to flour. Okay, so we have both baker's percentage as well as straight percentage. Okay, let's talk about the next topic. Next topic is our high school chemistry. Pounds and gallons, liters and kilos. You can get, there's a way to get, as you notice here, we have some pounds, we have some gallons, but down at the bottom we say, well, there's a gross weight or gross volume. In process manufacturing, we allow people to have, some things in pounds, some things in gallons, and be able to convert it to weight or volume. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to schedule a 400-gallon mixing vessel, or you're going to want to have 10 different doughs that you're manufacturing. But you also want to issue them by pounds or gallons. So we actually have the concept of density in the system. So for an item, we can say we stock it in pounds, but it has a density of 8.5, so we can actually easily flip between weight and volume units of measure. So we can represent a unit of measure, an item, we can receive it in pounds, we can issue it in a batch in gallons, we can do physical adjustments in another unit of measure. So we have complete flexible units of measure between weight and volume. So in this example, my pounds, gallons translate down into, in this case, I even made it more difficult, into kilos and liters. So we have all the conversions between weight and volume in this system. Okay, just a couple more things on formula. So revision history. So as I make changes to this formula, I can keep track of all the changes I've made to it. I can keep any notes. So within Infor Sightline, we have, Cloud Suite Process, we have document management. We can keep track of notes, any attachments, any of those types of things you can keep with your formulation. Okay, I could spend about 2 days talking about the concepts and theories of formulas, but in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so the second thing what we're going to talk about now is manufacturing execution. So we've planned the production, and planning is an entire webinar by itself. And CloudSuite Process has some amazing tools, but they're a little bit out of the scope of what we're going to talk about today. So we've planned this batch, we've created a batch, and I want to show you some of the things that are particularly interesting in a production batch. So in a production batch, let me just get up to the right place here. We really separate out the two sides of manufacturing. One side of manufacturing says, well, we need to put all this stuff in based on the formula. Okay, all of my flour and eggs and sugar and all those types of things. And then there's a second side of the manufacturing, which is, hey, here's what's coming out of the line. Now we have routing steps and work centers and all those types of things in the middle if we want to, but we don't have to. We don't have to. So the first part is issuing materials. So based on my recipe, when I created a batch, it scaled the batch to the size that I've asked. So maybe I've said I want a 400-gallon mixing vat. I want to have one of those. Or maybe I wanted to do a partial run, and it's only going to be 362 pounds in this mixing vat. Doesn't matter. The system's going to scale it for us and tell us how much of each ingredient we need to use. Now, since this example is food, we're going to have to do some lot tracking. So what we do in CloudSuite Process is we say, okay, for flour, these are the 2 lots that I have on hand. Tell me which one, or tell me if you use both. So we can issue either, let's see, so we have 61 pounds, so I could maybe use 30 pounds of this one and maybe 32 pounds of this other one. Doesn't matter. We're going to validate the lot transactions for each batch. And it's going to be very easy to do. We just go into quantity to allocate, enter the quantity, and we're done. Now, a lot of times what happens, or in some industries what happens more than others, is you issue based on the formula. Quality control says, hey, it's not quite up to spec. Let's add a little bit more of this or a little bit more of this. We can actually do additional transactions, which we call quality control adds. So we can keep track of which are real adds, according to the formula, and which are adds based on quality control. So we're going to be able to keep those transactions for you as well. Okay, let's flip to the other side of manufacturing. So we've issued all the materials into the dough. We're making the goop. On the other side of the line, the finished goods come out. So in this case, we've actually scheduled 2 different finished goods. So this is our concept of co-products. So one manufacturing batch, multiple finished goods coming off. Okay, in this case, it's just a label change. We have 2 customer labels that we use. We've scheduled a certain quantity, and we've completed a certain quantity. All we need to do is tell it which quantity, lot, location we're producing it to. Okay. Most process manufacturers that I've dealt with in the last 15 or so years typically produce into a case goes on a pallet gets shrink wrapped, and you stick a license plate on it. CloudSuite Process has that functionality, the functionality to track containers or what we would more normally call a pallet. Okay, so as we're receiving production from job number 1, 2, 3 in this location, we can scan the container, give it a lot number, tell how many units went on that pallet, and now we're tracking our inventory at the pallet level. So this is basic functionality within CloudSuite Process. So manufacturing execution, production entry, and our ability to have containers or pallets. Okay, just built right into the system. Okay. The next part I'd like to talk about, let me just flip back here for a second. We're going to go down to the purple section here as a quality control. So the last of the 6 items that we define as the characteristics of a process manufacturing system is a whole lot of quality control. Okay, so if you're a food company, you may have BRC or SQF regulations or food quality systems that you try to follow, we have tools to help you, lot control, etc. Let's take a look at the first one. You know, a lot of systems that do lot recalls give you a report or give you a screen that takes you part of the way. But for a true lot recall, we've created what's called a lot recall project. So a lot recall project, there's a lot of things going on in a lot recall. It's not just simply, hey, show me my traceability. There are a lot of things going on. So in this project, I've set up a new project, project number 7, my recall for chili powder. And like I mentioned earlier, there's document management and communication control that we can have within the system. The most basic part is we can attach files to this project. I can open up this attachment. I can say, hey, here's the notice we received saying that we need to recall this chili powder. Okay, it's kept in with the project, and anybody who has access to the project can see this information. We can also keep track of communication. So somebody says, hey, auditor's coming on Thursday. Everybody look busy. There you go. It's all attached. Okay, so we can attach things. Well, let's go ahead and do the guts of the recall. So a recall, according to the regulations for food, is that you have to be able to go one step back, one step forward. And I've purposely made this one a little more tricky than most. So this is an ingredient. So let's do the easy part first. Let's do a backward trace. Okay, so I'm going to trace backwards, and basically what that means is, who did I buy this ingredient from? Okay, well, let's see. It was, let's see, purchase order receipt. There we go. This is the lot it was. This is the purchase order, the line number. I can go drill into that purchase order, and I can see where I received it from. That's the easy part. But just know that we don't have to start with an ingredient. We could actually start at a finished good and work our way back and see where we got all of the ingredients for that finished good. Okay, but we're starting with the ingredient. So it's a little more complex because it's going to go through the levels of manufacturing. So let's do a forward trace of this lot. Okay, and let's see all the batches that it was produced in. Okay, so this ingredient was used in a lot of different manufacturing batches. It was probably put into a lot of different finished goods. But what we really want to know is, who is it shipped to? Okay, so here's my customer shipments. Any finished good that was tainted by this item in this lot is now in this list. We print it off. We do a recall. We put it in quarantine. Or I'm sorry, we send out our notifications. Very easy. But there's one more step, and this step sometimes people forget. Is we also need to know what's on hand that's tainted by this ingredient. So my on-hand stock tells me this ingredient and where it is in my warehouse. Any WIP that's tainted by this ingredient in this lot, or any finished good that's on hand that's tainted by this lot. So essentially what we have here is my pick list, pull all these items, pull them in quarantine, and wait for instructions of disposal or what we're going to do with the product. Okay, so super easy to do a lot recall and to keep all your information together. Okay, so that's the idea of a recall. We also have other types of quality control. So what we call a PO receipt. So as we receive ingredients, our ability to set up our tests. As we produce products, if we're going to test, do any micro testing, if we're going to do any quality testing, we do those in line in the quality control module. We also have HACCP controls. HACCP controls are like if you have a metal detector that's not batch specific, it's time specific. I set up my metal detector. Every hour I want to run my metal sticks through it to make sure it's running correctly. We can track those throughout the system as well. Let me just do one of these items. So in this case, for quality control purposes, we said that for this ingredient, flour, and this instance of it, if I receive it from Wilson Supply, there are certain tests that I want to do. If I receive flour from anybody else, there are other tests that I want to do. Okay, so tests can be specific to an item, specific to a vendor, specific to a customer, or specific to an operation, or not. can make it whatever you want it to be, which is very flexible because sometimes you have certified vendors that you buy stuff from and you don't have to do quite as many tests. Other times if you have a new vendor, maybe you want to do a few more tests. Well, you can actually define that item specific to fit your needs. Okay, so that is the basics of process manufacturing. So we covered, let me just kind of summarize here for a second. So split bill of materials, a finished good is made up of two things. One is a goop made from formula, and the other is packaging. Formulation is percentage-based, not one each based. Formulas also have weight, volume, and density, which helps us with our planning for production. We have a yield, and I didn't talk about this, I apologize. Yield is a measurement we have in process manufacturing where you take, let's say we took 100 pounds of product and put it in a blender, but then at the end, after we've packaged it in multiple different forms, we package off 95 pounds. The yield is a quotient of those two numbers. It's 95%. What happened to the 5%? Who knows? Maybe it's in the fill lines, maybe it's spilled on the floor, maybe it's on the edges of our mixing container. Those types of things happen. We don't actually have to specifically identify which item was scrapped out. We just say it's a yield. We expect a yield loss, and it's within our tolerance. If it's not within our tolerance, we can set up alerts and say, hey, let's go back and take a look at, see what actually happened here. Did we drop too much on the ground? Or did our ingredients not blending the way that we expected them to? Okay. Co-products and byproducts, so our ability to make multiple items out of one batch, whether it's a co-product that's sellable or a byproduct that's typically going to be disposed of, and a deep quality assurance. So those are the 6 pieces. I hope you are a little educated, more educated now on what CloudSuite Process can do, specifically for process industries. I showed you generically how we work for all process, but just know that there are a lot of features built in here for the specific micro verticals of process manufacturing.